and I will pass it on to Emanuele, who's here with us from Italian National Tourist Board for Australia and New Zealand. So he's based in Sydney, and he's going to take us on this little tour. So over to you, Emanuele. Grazie.
Buongiorno, mi chiamo Emanuele, or Emmanuel if that's easier for you. I manage the Italian National Tourist Board. We're located in Sydney at 140 William Street in Woolloomooloo. And there's two of us that work at the Tourist Board. There's myself and my colleague Giulia Giorgi. We have a pretty big job actually because we manage the whole of Australia and New Zealand, so two countries. And the Italian Tourist Board has been around now for over 100 years. So we had our centenary quite recently. We have 27 offices all around the world that promotes Italy. And as Blaise said, I hope you can stay until the end of the webinar because we have some great prizes to give away. We have our commemorative cheese boards as well as the Euro Pass prize, which you can use for 2021. So I guess we have a lot to get through. I hope I don't miss anything too important, or you know, we can obviously always you can contact us anytime. There'll be a slide at the end with all our contact details, and you can email us. You can contact us on our website, etc., etc. But today's presentation is regarding you know, Italy in 30 minutes. Why travel to Italy? What can you see? Why should you you know, I guess tell your clients about Italy as opposed to another country, for example? I didn't want to spend too much time on COVID, but just to let you know the current situation. So Italy was among the first European countries to reopen to tourists in June. We obviously can't travel here from Australia yet, but from the 1st of July, the European Union opened up its borders to Australians. So as soon as we are ready from Australia, we can pretty much travel to Italy. And that's not the case for all the countries in the world, but for Australians and New Zealanders, we are allowed as soon as we're allowed to travel again. Just wanted to obviously talk to you about the trains and the train system. Thanks to our friends at Rail Europe, you know, we really need to focus on the trains, but mainly because it's the best way to travel around Italy. Now we have high-speed trains, but we also have local trains, and I always say that you can pretty much get anywhere on a train in Italy from north to south. There are a few exceptions. For example, the Amalfi Coast, which is literally built on the side of a rock. So some of the villages there, you can only get through the winding roads and the ferries, like, for example, the towns of Positano and Amalfi. But apart from a few exceptions, you can pretty much get anywhere on a high-speed train in Italy. There are over 300 daily connections available from the two companies which operate in Italy, which is Trenitalia and Italo. You can get from Florence to Venice in just over an hour, Florence to Rome, Rome to Venice in just over 3 hours, Milan to Venice in 2 hours and 23 minutes, Naples to Rome in 1 hour and 8 minutes. Now, the great thing about traveling on the trains to Italy as well is that unlike airports, where you know, once you arrive in an airport, you still have to get out of the airport and perhaps maybe get an airport transfer. With the train stations, they're actually located in the city centres. And I think Florence is a great example because it's a town where you literally get out of the train station and in 30 minutes or so, you're in Piazza della Signoria. And even with the other major cities such as Rome and Milan, for example, when you get to the train station, you can just get onto the underground metro lines, and in a couple of stops, for example, in Rome, you can easily get to in the underground metro and be at the Colosseum or Piazza di Spagna, the Spanish Steps, or in Milan, from Milano Centrale, you can get to Piazza del Duomo, or you can even reach the lakes as well. So on a local train, getting from say Milan to Lake Como, you can get to Varenna, in about 30 minutes. And then from there you can, I'll talk to you, going on, waffling on a little bit here, and I'll get to that very, very shortly. But yeah, I mean, the railway is, in my opinion, the best way to see Italy. What does Italy have to offer? Well, thanks to its 20 unique regions, here's what we can expect. Art and culture, nature, sea and lakes, mountains, food and wine, sport and wellness, festivals and events, and of course the shopping. So we're just going to run through each one of these topics. Hopefully I won't take up more than 30 minutes because there's obviously a lot to say when it comes to traveling around Italy. But as far as art and culture is concerned, there's artistic masterpieces can be found from north to south of the country. Italy offers an exciting journey through its history, from the ancient Greeks and Romans to the present day. The cities are filled with a wealth of art and culture. The main art cities being Rome, Florence, Venice, Naples, but also Milan, Bologna, Perugia, Palermo, and so on. And then, of course, you've got all the little villages as well that are filled with so many things to see, the hilltop towns. 3,609 museums, 5,000 monuments and archaeological sites, 46,000 architectural assets, 34,000 entertainment sites, thousands of festivals and cultural initiatives. Nature. So Italy has some of the world's most mesmerizing sceneries and landscapes spread across its regions. We can explore natural wonders, ancient ruins, cliffside villages, and rolling vineyards, which are perfectly integrated into the natural environments, making the country an exciting destination for visitors who appreciate the arts and culture along with these scenic landscapes. Now, when we're talking about nature, I automatically think of things such as the Vesuvius volcano or Mount Etna in Sicily, or the Cinque Terre National Park, the smaller islands such as the Aeolian Islands. And speaking about islands and the sea, Italy's rugged coastline. Villages are often located between the blue sea and the rugged mountains that rise above them. Think about the Ligurian coast, Abruzzo's beach resorts, the renowned Sorrento Peninsula, the villages on the Amalfi Coast, the wild cliffs of Calabria, the islands of Sicily and Sardinia. Then, of course, in Italy, we also have mountains. Very, very important. I'm not sure if you knew this, but Cortina will host the 2026 Winter Olympic Games. In Italy, we have the Alps that are the highest and most fascinating mountains in Europe, separating Italy from France, Switzerland, Austria, and Slovenia. And often in this part of Italy as well, they speak not just Italian, but they speak French on the French side, German in the Dolomites, and on the Austrian border. Then we have the Apennines that run down all the way into Calabria. They reach the highest point in the Gran Sasso, forming a magnificent winter sports area. And yeah, so and then the Alps. I think, did I mention the Alps? Yes, that separate Italy from France, Switzerland, Austria, and Slovenia. The lakes, which I've just mentioned a little bit earlier, they've attracted artists, writers, and wealthy retirees. For hundreds of years, on the lakes, castles and grand residences are surrounded by immaculate gardens and villas of the rich and famous. Of course, who comes to mind when we talk about Lake Como? George Clooney. We must mention, of course, Lake Maggiore, Lake Garda, Lake Como, where you can spend the day getting on and off the ferry to visit the picturesque villages such as Bellagio, Menaggio. You can literally spend the whole day just going across one side to the other. It's quite an amazing experience, not just in the summertime, but in the wintertime as well. Now, we can't talk about Italy and not mention food and wine. Italy has always been known for its delicious food and has one of the most famous cuisines in the world. Each region has its own traditional recipes that have been passed on from generation to generation. Think about risotto, ossobuco, polenta. They all originated from the north of Italy. Then we have pizza, which originated from Naples, pesto in Genova, ribollita soup is from Tuscany, carbonara from Rome, arancini from Sicily, and so on and so on. So every region in Italy has its own traditions and recipes. You know, the town that I'm from, which is a town called Lucca, which I mentioned in the beginning, has a dessert called bucellato. Now, bucellato you can't get anywhere else but Lucca. If you travel 20 minutes to Pisa and you ask for bucellato, you can't get it there. So there's examples of everywhere in Italy. Sports and wellness. Italy's coastline offers opportunities to indulge in water sports such as windsurfing, kite surfing, swimming, sailing, and water skiing. For mountain enthusiasts, there are so many options during the summer: cycling, walking, horseback riding, whitewater rafting, kayaking along streams and rivers, fishing in the pristine waters of rivers and lakes, paragliding and hang gliding over spectacular landscapes. During the winter, the mountains become a paradise for those who love winter sports. But also, you know, talking about trains before, you can take your bike on a train, you can head to Bolzano in the mountains and cycle there, or even you know, in Tuscany, for example, you can get off your bike and go through the beautiful winding roads of the Tuscan countryside. So it's really the options are endless. Festivals and events. Each town in Italy has its own festivals based on the local cultural traditions. The most famous is the Venice Carnival, followed by the Palio di Siena with a spectacular horse race in the Piazza del Campo. Italy is, of course, the land of composers and opera. Italian theatres offer performances in spectacular locations and venues. For example, the most prestigious opera theatre is of course La Scala in Milan. And then, of course, besides the Venice Carnival, there are so many other local carnivals as well. The Viareggio Carnival is the second most famous carnival in Italy, but I could list so many more. Shopping. Italy has become a huge motivation in itself to shopping has become a huge motivation to visit Italy, also thanks to the expansion of factory outlets that attract visitors from all over the world who take advantage of organized tours to shop for the Made in Italy brands. Via dei Condotti in Rome, Via dei Mille in Naples, and Via Monte Napoleone in Milan are among the most sought after streets. And you know, I could name so many fashion brands: Armani, Gucci, and so on. Ermenegildo Zegna. So that's I guess a reason in itself to actually go and take a trip to Italy. Italy has 55 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Now imagine getting on a train and visiting all these sites from north to south in Italy. Italy is 26 times smaller than Australia. So imagine a country that has all these amazing World Heritage Sites all compacted into one nation. It's quite a big achievement, I think. If you would like a list of pretty much everything that we're talking about, but even the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, our website, which I'll mention later, you can actually download our brochure. And in the middle of the brochure, we have the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, all 55 of them. So I think it's quite a handy tool to have, because you know, often you might get asked, you know, I've been to Venice, Florence, and Rome. Where else can I go? And then obviously there are so many options there. Now, I wanted to take this opportunity to mention that we are currently, in conjunction with Travel Daily, running the Travel to Italy Specialist Program. It's an online, you may have, if you read Travel Daily, you may already know about this. It's an online training course that has 8 modules, which you can just go on to the website traveltoitalyacademy.com and log on, and then you get your credentials. And if you complete all the 8 modules, there's only 4 available at the moment, but we'll be adding more and more, and there'll be 8 modules all up. If you complete all the 8 modules, The agents will go into it, a draw to win one of 6 Italy Famils for next year. And 4 of the winners will be from Australia and 2 of the winners will be from New Zealand. So you'll get to go on a Famil trip to Tuscany. So it's quite exciting. I mean, not just because you obviously you have you can take advantage of the chance to gain more knowledge on Italy as a tourism destination, but you may also get to go on this wonderful Famil trip to Italy. These are all our contact details. So as I said, there's so much information on visititaly.com.au. You can download the brochure that I mentioned earlier on visititaly.com.au. Italia.it is a great resource. You can write to us at sydney@enit.it. Follow our Facebook, social media pages, Twitter and Instagram. And that's pretty much it, I think. I hope I was within my time limits.
No, that was great. Perfect timing. We got plenty of time now for questions. Before we go to the quiz and the questions, I'd just like to quickly touch on the train aspect real quick. As Emanuele has mentioned, Italy has 2 railway providers, Trenitalia and Italo. So they're both very comparable. I wouldn't say that one's better than the other, really. Depends on who you ask. I don't know, Emanuele, do you have an opinion or?
No, and I think that also there's not much difference between Italo and Trenitalia, in my opinion, and also there's also not much difference, I think, between first and second class. And obviously, sometimes I get asked, you know, if I book first class. I mean, it is a little bit better, obviously, for obvious reasons, but second class is also great. If you book in advance, travel is very, very cheap. If you book 3-4 months in advance, if you book last minute, it may get a little bit more expensive, a little bit like domestic airlines. If you book a Virgin flight the day before, you probably pay double the price. But if you book it, months in advance, it's a lot cheaper. And the same things with the trains as well.
Yeah, and that's the second thing I was going to mention. So Italian point-to-point tickets are usually very inexpensive, especially if, as Emanuela said, you booked a couple of months ahead. Oftentimes the difference between first and second class prices is also very minimal. So we find that most of the Australian and New Zealand travelers will travel first class. And some of the high-speed railways even have 4 classes of service. So you have even multiple levels, and the differences in price are really, really not that significant. So it's a really good option. I just mentioned that Eurail Pass is only valid on Trenitalia trains, not on Italo. Italo is a private railway, so the passes wouldn't be valid. However, if you have clients who are traveling only in Italy, doing point-to-points, in most cases, going point to point is going to be cheaper than getting a pass in most cases. So for Italy, Eurail is not necessarily the best value just because the point to point tickets are usually so much cheaper. Also, on most trains, seat reservations are compulsory. So especially if we're talking about the high speed lines like the Frecce. So even if you have a Eurail pass, you still have to pay a supplement for the to actually book a seat on that particular train. So generally, clients, if the clients are only going to Italy and not using any other trains outside there, mostly point-to-point is the best way to go. All right, I'm gonna launch my our quiz now, and then we're gonna tackle the questions as well. So the quiz should pop up on your screens now. So take your time. We're gonna give you 5 to 10 minutes to solve all that. I'll leave it up while we answer the questions. And I see that we have a couple of questions already come through. Janelle's asking about the brochures, Emanuele, if they can order them somewhere, if they're available maybe on TIFFs or BrochureNet.
We can send them to you. If you are paper conscious and want to just download the brochure, you can do that as well on the visitaly.com.au website, but we'd be happy to send you a supply as well.
Perfect. And we will send out a follow-up email as usual with the presentation and all the links and all the resources. So you'll be able to look at that there. Because I think Rosalba was asking about the contact details, and we'll resend those as well. Well, they're up on the screen now, but we'll resend all that to you. can we touch on train access to major airports? That's a pretty good topic. I believe most major airports do have train connections. Like if I touch on Rome, you have Leonardo Express, which
Leonardo
is also
Express
covered by Eurail, which is pretty good.
every 20 minutes, and it starts early in the morning. I think it's 6:20 a.m. and it goes all the way until I think 11:30 at night. Every 20 minutes, there's a connection with on the Leonardo Express. And Milan Malpensa as well is also connected with the train that will get you all the way from the airport to Milano Centrale. And then from Milano Centrale, you have the options of getting on in the underground metro to wherever it is that you want to go. I think there's 5 metro lines now, 5 or 6. It's the green, the blue, the yellow, the purple. Yeah, so it's well connected.
Perfect, exactly. So there was a question from Vic just about Eurail passes, so railway tickets that you can use for to travel around Italy for an extended period of time. As we've said, that's definitely an option, and we'll send the information through. But in most cases, if you're just doing point-to-points, it's usually cheaper just to do that. There we go. Let's see. A question from Tina, which I've already answered. So Eurail Pass does only let you travel on Trenitalia, not on Italo. So if you're doing point-to-point, you can choose one or the other, depending on which one's cheaper or which one has a better connection. They're both very frequent and touch on most of the major destinations. But if you do have a Eurail Pass, you'll only be able to travel on board Trenitalia. Can you pre-select your seats? So we don't, if you book through Rail Europe, the seats are generally automatically allocated. So we don't offer a seat map. Unfortunately, we don't have that option available. So the seats are usually automatically allocated. I know oftentimes the clients will want a seat facing the direction of travel, but in most cases that's not even predetermined by the railways, because the train configuration can usually be switched around depending on that particular day. What is the best way to get from Naples to Sorrento? Do you recommend the private rail or a car transfer? I can touch on that, and maybe Emanuela, you can add your own 2 cents. So there is a private train route from Naples to Sorrento, Circumvesuviana. However, we don't recommend it really. It's a very sort of commuter train. There's no aircon, there's no luggage racks. And we generally don't recommend it. It's a private train, so Eurail Pass won't be valid on it. Plus, you cannot book it through us. We recommend either a private transfer. There's plenty of options. You can also take a ferry. So definitely, I wouldn't recommend a train. I mean, it breaks my heart to say no to a train, but in this case, I wouldn't recommend a train. Emanuela, do you have?
Look, I've taken the Circumvesuviana from Naples to Sorrento. It's just a local train. In fact, the carriages look more like a subway than an actual train. So, but I mean, it stops. It's an all stop, so it takes about 45 minutes, I think, to get from there because it stops everywhere. But one of the stops is actually Pompeii as well, so you might actually use the train just to get on and off and visit the ruins in Pompeii, and then continue on. It's not the best train, but it works.
Yeah. Well, we've heard some sort of shady stories as well in terms of safety. Actually, one of the comments here from one of the participants is that Diane said that she was robbed on that train with like of her handbag with her passport. So maybe just another. I mean, obviously that's the case in a lot of public transportation options in Europe. You just have to be very careful. But again, I've heard so many stories about Circumvesuviana now that we don't really endorse or recommend it. But there's other options, luckily. And all the other trains, if you take Trenitalia or Italo, are very, very safe and a whole different story compared to that particular one. Kirsty is asking about, is it different for an Italian rail pass? Can you use it for both companies? So Italian rail pass is essentially Eurail. There's no, that's the same thing. Any rail pass, it's just Eurail. It can only be used on Trenitalia. So there's no pass that's valid on Italo. Italo is only point-to-point tickets. And another one that kind of follows up on Circumvesuviana, can you get a point-to-point ticket to Pompeii from Rome? Not directly, you'd have to travel to Naples by train. So you can use either Trenitalia or Italo for that. A lot of connections, and I think it's just over an hour. And then you'd have to either do a tour or a private transport. You could take Circumvesuviana as well, but there's no direct connection or sort of train that we can book, through Trenitalia or Italo. I don't know, Emanuele, I think we pretty much covered that.
Yeah, so just going back to Circumvesuviana, I mean, it's more like, as I said, more like a subway train. The carriages. So I wouldn't even call it a train, even though
True.
it is a train. It's not the same experience as getting on a high speed, Italo or Trenitalia train. It's literally just getting on a bus, pretty much. That's what I would compare it to.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. Question from Shelley. Is it easy to take your suitcases on the underground from the airports?
It's easy enough in the sense that there are lifts and escalators, but so in that respect, it's easy enough because you can just get into the lift. But I mean, obviously, a transfer is much more comfortable as opposed to getting.
Yeah, exactly. And we always say with trains, because that's one of the advantages of trains is that there's usually no luggage limits directly. So your clients, and they're not as restricted as if you're flying. However, we always say, the client should take as many bags as they can safely carry. That's usually sort of the go-to mantra for us. Question from Aaron, is the train on the ferry to Sicily included on the Ural Pass? So yeah, that's a very curious way to travel. So if you are taking the Trenitalia train from mainland Italy onto Sicily, the train actually goes on a ferry and then crosses over, and that's covered by Ural Pass because it's just a regular route. So if you're booking from mainland Italy onto Sicily, that's going to be all included and also on the Ural Pass.
Quite an experience, actually. You actually
have
have to. Yeah, I've done it many years ago.
I haven't. Yeah, so.
And so the train obviously goes on to, there's a bit of preparation involved, so you actually don't have to get off the train. And the train goes onto the ferry, and it takes, I think, about 30 minutes for them to prepare it all, and then it goes across and then continues on. Yes. Interesting experience.
Yeah, and it's I think it's one of the last instances of trains going on a ferry, because there was one in Germany, but that's going to be gone now because I think they're building an alternative route. Question from Margaret, and that's going to be for you, Emanuele. Please describe what the dish from Lucca was.
It's called bucellato. It's not everyone's cup of tea. It's like a hard bread which you can perhaps maybe dip into your coffee or whatever. And it tastes a little. I think they use aniseed or licorice. It's like a licorice bread, but it's very typical of Lucca. And in fact, there's if you actually want the typical bucellato, you have to go to one of the bakeries which is located in Piazza San Michele, where they've been making bucellato there for generations.
Okay, perfect. We'll keep going with the questions. It looks like we still have quite a few, so hopefully we don't miss any. Julie is asking about what time of the year do you think is the best time to travel to Italy?
That's a very good question. And I think, personally, my last trip to Italy was during the winter time. And I was thinking to myself, it's best to go in summer because it's nicer, but I beg to differ now. I personally, and I know that many people love going during the summertime, but the wintertime, especially around Christmas, where everything is lit up and you can walk around the streets of Venice and there's less crowded than it usually would be. It's a great experience, in my opinion, but I guess maybe halfway between summer and winter, which is of course autumn and spring, is probably the best time as well. So summer, school holidays in Italy finish in September. So all the kids go back to school at the beginning of September. So from September onwards, it's also a great time of year because it's still very, very warm. And the kids are back at school. So there's not that local tourism happening as well, like there would be in June, July, August. June, July, August is kids' school holidays.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I'm just checking a couple of. I've answered some of the questions just typing. If they were short ones, because we might not have time to answer all the questions because there's quite a few. Let's see. How reliable is the network in Sicily? Emanuela, do you have any insight on that?
The train, probably not as reliable as mainland Italy, as in the sense that it doesn't cover the whole of Sicily. In some parts, you're probably better off hiring a car to get to certain places. But I mean, yeah, there are trains in Sicily, but it's not as well covered as mainland Italy.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. There's also a couple of questions about COVID-19 and the protections that are in place on the trains. I'm going to send you a link to some resources about that, where you can read directly about what's happening and what they're doing. So you can read it all up and have it for your reference there, because there's a couple of questions coming through for that. I don't know, Manuela, if you wanted to address that directly.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ever-changing situation. So all the up-to-date information is up on our websites. My colleagues my European colleagues are telling me that apparently there's no better time to actually visit Italy than now, because the situation is, obviously Italy was one of the hardest hit countries in the world, and now it's actually one of the European countries that's recovering the quickest. And there's no crowds, there's no queues to go into the Vatican museums or the Uffizi galleries. The weather's beautiful because it's summer. Obviously we can't go there, but I'm just giving you some feedback from what I've been told by my colleagues. And there's this social distancing, so you still have to social distance and wear a mask, but it hasn't stopped people from going there, because apparently it's the best time to visit Italy. So.
Okay, perfect. Question from Kathy: is there a fee to bring your luggage? No. So all the luggage is free of charge on the trains, unlike a lot of the airlines that will fly locally in Italy. Let's keep going. 1 second. Can clients check in for flights at the railway like they can in Switzerland? I don't think that's an option. I think all the check-ins are usually at the airports, unless do you know anything more about that?
I think there's actually one airline, Emirates, that where you can actually book your flight and your train all with the airline.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the options. But I think when it comes to actual check-ins, you have to do it at the airport. There's no option to do it at a train station or something similar. Right. I don't think there is. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. From Janelle, what is something you can do in Lucca that we may not have heard about?
Oh, definitely cycle on the walls. So many cities in Italy have walls, so medieval walls that once upon a time, they would battle. So Lucca would battle versus Pisa, and they would lock themselves in this fortress of the city. Now, what makes Lucca unique, I guess, is that some of the other city walls in the other cities, such as Pisa, for example, the walls are about sort of, this thick. In Lucca, you can walk on them, you can cycle your bike, you can cycle, you can go running. It's like a hangout area, so you can actually walk on the walls of the city, which is quite unique, I think.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. There was a comment about that the website that you listed, Emanuele, wasn't working, Visit Italy, but I think we're going to
So,
send the links through.
yeah, so it's VIS Italy. So not Visit Italy, but
There we go.
visitaly.com.au. That's our local website for Australia and New Zealand. Then we have our international website, which is italia.it. And then the Travel Academy, which is definitely worth checking out as well.
Okay, perfect. Do you have a list of cooking classes available? It's more of a
Do
question
I
for
have a
you.
list of cooking classes? There are, you mean in Australia or in Italy or
I would assume that it refers to Italy.
in Italy?
Yep.
There actually was, once upon a time, there was a great website. I'm not sure if it's still around, but this website had the map of Italy, and I'll find out for you. And so you go onto the website, you would click on the region that you wanted to check out. For example, Lazio or Tuscany. I keep going to Tuscany because I'm from Tuscany, but maybe I should say Lombardia. And then you would click on the towns in that region. So in Lombardia, Milan, Como, etc., etc. And you could actually click on there and it would come up with cooking schools for that particular town. So there'd obviously be so many of them. But I'll find out and see if that website still exists, and I can email you.
Perfect. I know we're going a little bit over time, but hopefully you guys can still stick around for us to answer all the questions. If anyone needs to leave, of course, feel free to go. But we'll answer all the questions that are still on the list, just so that everybody gets what they're asking. There's a question about suggestions for car hire. Obviously, I'm not the right person to ask, but maybe Emanuele, if you have any suggestions for car hire in Italy.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a few tour operators here in Australia as well, where we can book car hire. There's the obvious ones in Italy as well, such as Avis or I can't think of them now, but we can definitely point you in the right direction there. Sometimes it's easier to book with a tour operator here in Australia. It just saves a lot of hassle. Or you could pretty much just arrive at the airport and book a car there as well. I like to get organized and do it beforehand. So
yeah, usually a better way. There's actually a few questions where they're talking about winter time. What's the deal with museums and galleries? Are they open? Are all the attractions open in winter? Do you mind touching a bit on that?
Besides the public holidays, such as Christmas Day and whatever, usually the museums are all open. The only things that would close in some areas would be like the seaside town resorts or the hotels, for example. Some hotels, for example, in the Cinque Terre or the Amalfi Coast, might close down between, say, November and to the start of the season again in April. So that there might be a time where certain hotels just don't offer accommodation, but you can still go there. You can still go there on a day trip, or you can stay somewhere close by. But in terms of museums and markets, that's they're all open.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Well, that's a good question. Which destination is great to go to that is off the beaten path, but still accessible by train, and we don't really know much about? Any recommendations from that perspective?
Ooh, well, I mean, as a government tourist office, we can't really recommend and say you should be going here and you should not be going there, and we have to be biased and promote all the destinations. But on our website and in our brochure as well, there is a section on villages, on the villages. So besides the major art cities, there are so many hamlets and villages which are definitely worth checking out. Some of the hilltop towns, and some of them you can actually access on the train as well. Not all of them. Some you probably have to drive there because of the location. But there are a few where you can actually get a train to as well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, there was a question from Anthony, and I'm actually just typing the answer, but we can answer it live. For Positano and Amalfi Coast, in your opinion, is it best to travel via Naples or Salerno? I think it really depends where on Amalfi Coast you are. Like Sorrento is closer to Naples, but if you're further down south, I think, Sorrento is closer to Naples, but then if you're further down south, then it's better to go to Salerno and then transfer from there, right?
Yeah, and I also, that's right. So it depends where on the Amalfi Coast that you want to go to. I also found out something which was an amazing experience on my last trip to one of my last trips to the Amalfi Coast, which are the hop on, hop off buses, which I'm not usually a big fan of, but on the Amalfi Coast they were amazing because you've got all the winding roads and you've got especially in the summertime, it gets fairly hot there as well. So if you're on these hop on, hop off buses with the air conditioning on, and they give you the little earphones so that you can listen to and look out the window, it was an amazing experience. So that's something that I would definitely recommend as well.
Perfect. Jessica's asking about the Tuscany Specialist webinar. Has the date been set, and when can we register?
It hasn't been set yet because that will be part of the next modules. So there's 4 modules at the moment, which we've released for the Travel Academy. And there'll be one of the 8 modules will just be on Tuscany. And once you complete all the 8 modules, you become Italy specialist. And when you complete the Tuscany module, you will get a chance to go into the draw to win the Tuscany Famil prize by getting the link, and then you can and then you have to listen to the webinar, so live from Tuscany. So I'll probably be conducting the webinar with my colleagues in Tuscany, and they'll give you a live rundown on all the things that are all the new information that you need to know about with traveling to Tuscany. So to answer your question, sorry, after you complete the last of the 8 modules, which is the Tuscany modules, you will then receive a link for the webinar.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We have 3 more questions. So thanks to everyone for bearing with us. Just a quick one from Robert. Is the Instagram page new?
No, so that's a very good question. So we do have our own Instagram page here in Australia, but we've decided that worldwide that our Italia.it Instagram page, which is our head office, so I guess Twitter and Facebook are our social media pages here in Australia, because Instagram is very focused on photographs, obviously. It's been decided that we will probably end up just with the one for all our 27 offices all around the world, which is the Italia.it Instagram page. Having said that, yeah, we do still have a local Instagram page at the moment, okay, which is Italian Tourist Office.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It's a bit of a specific question from Alan. Where in Italy were the scenes for Normal People filmed? I don't even...
Is that a movie?
I would assume so. Not really sure.
I haven't seen that one.
No? Okay. Alan, sorry, I don't think either of us knows. If anyone else knows, they can just pop it in the chat box, make sure that they include everyone. So unfortunately, we'll have to pass on that one. Rosie's asking that she saw somewhere that the government was offering discounted flights and tourist attractions to Sicily and Italy post-COVID. Do you have any information about this?
Yes, I do. It was a bit of a grey area, and one of my colleagues from London sent me some information which I will go and dig out and share with you guys. It's not really relevant for us at the moment because we can't travel anywhere, so I didn't really focus on that too much. Whereas in the UK, that you can travel from Italy to from the UK to Italy, we have to wait until next year. I'm not sure that will hoping that before next year, but we still have to wait a little while. So I'm not sure if that will continue or not, but I can find out and I can share that information. Yes.
Okay, perfect. There's just a follow-up from Alan. Apparently, Normal People is one of the most streamed TV series ever. And Susan's saying that the location was Stimigliana, apparently. So there we go. Does that ring a bell?
No, so I'm wondering whether maybe it's the translation of the TV. Sometimes they translate TV shows with a completely different title. So Normal People, it doesn't ring a bell.
Is it I'm definitely going to be Googling that after we finish the webinar. Yeah, I think we just started a trend. Maybe it's Alan's show and he's just trying to like wrap up some support for it. Anyway, yeah, there we go. There's a couple. Oh, it's an Irish TV series. It's on Stan. So for all the Aussies, if you have Stan, you'd be able to access it. I don't currently have Stan. If anyone wants to share a password with me, let me know in the comments.
You probably already know, but the new James Bond movie, which hasn't been released yet, is filmed in Matera in Basilicata.
Okay.
So I can't wait to see that.
Ah, yeah. Oh, there's a good comment from Julia now. I really didn't think we were going to be talking about a TV show for such an extended period of time, but it seems to be trending. Although set in Trieste, in the novel, filming took place in central Italy, primarily in and around Santoreste, Stimigliano, and the Villa Il Casale and Tenuta di Verzano in Lazio. Okay. So hopefully that's it. And apparently you can get Normal People on TVNZ on demand as well. So for all the Kiwi, which I actually wanted to give a big shout out to all the Kiwi agents out there. If you guys want to raise your hands just to see how many of you there are, you can press the button. Just want to have a look at, yeah, there we go. There's quite a few of you. So yeah, thank you for joining us at all these webinars. It's always good to have our buddies from across the Tasman at the webinars as well. All right, I don't think there's any other questions. I hope I didn't miss anything. If there's anything, everybody's going to receive a follow-up email with all the resources that we're talking about. If there's something that's missing, something that we didn't answer, just reply to the email and I'll read every single email and make sure that you get your answer. So don't worry about that. I want to thank everyone for joining. It's been such a wonderful ride. This is our last webinar and it's actually been the biggest one as well. I think we had over 150 people join, which is really, really exciting. A big thank you to those who've joined for all the 8 webinars. It's been a really nice journey to have you all with you. And a big thank you, of course, to Emanuele for giving us this nice tour and for taking the time. Like, I think we spent almost half an hour on the questions alone, which is great. And for taking the time to answer all the questions.
My pleasure.
Any final words from you, Emanuele?
No, just, I guess we'll have to hang in there during this very, very weird and difficult time, but we'll get there in the end. I'm sure that we will. And hopefully we can go back and visit Italy.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to go back to Europe at some point soon and also visit my family and all that. Being stuck in Australia, it's a good place to be stuck in, but definitely having a bit of a travel fever right now, especially in Melbourne, where we're even more limited than the rest of the country. All right, a big thank you again to everyone. We'll stop the webinar here and I'll send you a follow-up email shortly so you'll be able to reply to that if there's any questions or any concerns that we haven't addressed during the webinar. Thank you all. Grazie. Arrivederci. And we'll see you in Italy hopefully soon.
Ciao, arrivederci. Bye-bye.
Bye.